Let's go.
Let's go. Oh, no.
Do you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next one.
I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Don't say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues!
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Citizen Dame, the podcast where it's the end of the year. It is almost the winter solstice. We are getting very close, which means the days will start getting longer again and light will return. I am Lauren Humphreys Brooks, and with me, as always, is Karen Peterson. Hello, Karen.
Hello. Oh my gosh. I was just talking to someone yesterday about how this year in particular, it feels like sun is setting way earlier than it normally does. And I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I don't know. It's been a hard year. I think that's part of it. And yeah, at least here in New York, we've had a lot of just very gray days as well. So the sun rises, but it's just sort of bleh. It's actually quite nice here today.
I went to a Christmas party last night. It was down in Orange County, kind of nearer to the ocean than I live. And when I left, the fog was so thick and it was so creepy. And it just was like, yeah, this matches my mood. This fits.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's been a tough year. It really
has.
I've seen this clip passed around a little bit, but there's a clip of like Carol Burnett from like one of her variety shows or something like that, where it's like all of us going into 2026, and it's just like she is just like she's like wearing this flapper dress, but she's just destroyed, like, and is barely walking down the stairs, like tripping and falling and everything. And it's like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah,
that's definitely how it feels right now.
I was recently talking to a friend of mine about why. So 2020, that year felt like the hardest year that I could remember, as far as not in my own personal life, but just the world in general, and we've been through a lot of hard things together, all of us. But 2020 was a particularly hard year for obvious reasons. And yet 2025 somehow feels so much harder. And we were talking about why that is. And she brought up the point that in 2020, we went through that year knowing that eventually they would find a vaccine. There was going to be an election at the end of that year. Yeah. You obviously didn't know how that was going to turn out, but there was the hope that things were going to end and it was going to get better. And right now, we're just looking into the abyss, not knowing if or when things are going to improve or if it's just going to keep getting worse. And that's why it feels so much worse this year than it did 5 years ago. And I thought that was a really good point. And I'm using that thought to try to change my own way of thinking and to try to find more positive things to hold on to instead of just wallowing in the darkness, basically.
Well, and I think that's it. We're coming to the end of 2025. We kind of, I don't think we couldn't have predicted all of the things that have gone on, but also not a lot of it in terms of the political situation, et cetera. Not a lot of it is unpredictable. It's like, right. This is kind of on track, right?
Yeah. It's shocking, but not surprising.
Yeah, exactly. And that's its own kind of despair, I guess. But I also do think that there are these points of hope. I have a lot of hope from, just at my level. I have a lot of hope for the fact that Zohran Mamdani got elected mayor of New York City. And it's a small thing and it's a more local thing, but it's also important. I think that it says something. I've had a lot of hope seeing all of the protests and all of the resistance that is not like, hashtag resistance, but legitimate action being taken by people at very local levels, at all kinds of levels. And I do think that there is hope. And one of the things that, has really bothered me this past year has been like AI and this sort of, we're going to replace human art basically in like literature and everything. But it's also sort of pushed me to be more like, I want to engage more with people, right? With real people, with real art made by real human beings, and sort of, see those moments where we are pushing back against that kind of thing, that it doesn't have to be like that, basically. And that in itself, I think can be very hopeful. That doesn't, and I think that there's that balance between acknowledging when something is bad and also holding out hope for it to get better and seeing the good things that there are as well. And so it's hard. It's definitely hard. And this year's been very unpredictable in a lot of other ways. I think just like things just have happened.
Yeah.
That you're like, I couldn't have seen that one coming. Whereas like you say, in 2020, there was, after that initial shock of the virus and everything shutting down and everything like that, there did become this like consistency of like, okay, we're gonna get somewhere eventually, right? We are gonna get a vaccine. This isn't gonna go on forever.
Yeah.
Whereas right now it's like, oh God, what else?
Yeah.
But so I think that's where you get the hope from is by grabbing a hold of the good things and recognizing, I think Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers, look for the people that are actually doing something, and the way that you can do things as well. And even at just the level of, having a conversation about films every week.
Yeah. Yeah, which is really wonderful for my mental health too. And I just wanted to add on to what you just said, quoting Mr. Rogers. I think the last part of what you said is the important thing, because we are all adults here and we need to be the helpers. And so finding the people that are helping and then joining them, I think is key. So
yeah. And whatever that means, whenever that looks like too, I think there's a lot of pressure to do certain things, like you should be doing X, you should be doing Y, and not everybody should be doing X, not everybody should be doing Y. You need to kind of spread that out, and what does that look like for you? Without just it developing into complacency or not doing anything.
I will say I went to my very first protest ever this year, and it felt really good. And being part of that is, it was just a step, and it really did kind of motivate me to want to be more involved in looking out for people and speaking up for people who can't speak up for themselves.
Yeah. I went to my first Pride being out this year, and that had a similar kind of feeling. That wasn't a protest, but it wasn't a protest, but it felt a little bit like one in places, just that sense of like seeing all of these people and being a part of that were simply existing in the world and celebrating their existence, especially in a world and in a country right now that really wants to destroy that and erase it. And that's really important. It was definitely important for me. And like, again, that sense of like, I want to find a way to be engaged with this more, right? And letting that sort of, in ways that I can do. So letting that sort of drive you forward.
I love it.
All right. So before we get started on our final film of this year, I did want to take a moment to just mention Rob Reiner and the tragedy of his loss this past week, right?
Yeah, it was last Sunday.
Yeah. And like, we don't have to go into details about what happened. I think most people know at this point, but it's just incredibly sad. And I think that, also just remembering the art that he contributed to the world, the positivity and the great things that him and his wife, Michelle, did and were a part of. It's just really important to like remember that, as well as sad as it is and as tragic as this loss is, the way that they died as well. But to also like note the good things. Like it's good to be sad, and it's also good to remember how much he did for cinema and what a great artist he was, and what an important figure he was.
I think that, I mean, obviously he was 78, she was 68, and a lot of people like you and I were talking about before we started recording, a lot of people die at those ages, but the way that they died is particularly tragic. They didn't die of illness or, a sudden heart attack. They were their lives were stolen from them. And so that there's this extra level of grief and mourning that comes with that. But one of the really beautiful things that I've seen this week is just the outpouring of love and admiration and respect for them and the wide reach they had with people, and how much even people who disagreed with them loved them so, so deeply. And, I mean, a certain person who shall remain nameless had a very vile statement about it. And even people who support that person came out and said, no, 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 we're not going to do that. This is wrong. And Rob and Michelle Reiner were really incredible people. And they leave such a legacy of love and caring and activism, plus really great art. And yeah, it's a tragedy, and it's been really hard to process this. But I think that's what we can take comfort in is what they leave behind.
Absolutely. And to that end, for January, we're going to do Rob Reiner's films. We've actually already talked about Princess Bride, but we're going to talk about some of his other works. And yeah, and just remember that. I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, and a number of people posted a lot of different clips of him and like his speeches and things. But someone also posted actually probably one of my earliest experiences of Rob Reiner, which is All in the Family. I used to watch reruns of All in the Family on TV Land all the time. Yep. And they just posted this clip of like his argument, like him and I can't remember the actor's name, plays Archie Bunker, them having this argument about the correct way to put shoes on. And it's hilarious. Like, and so it's just that memory as well that, like, he started out as an actor. He's the son of a very famous actor, producer, etc. But also just really good comedian, really understood comedy and things like that. And that's something that he also puts into his own work and in his filmmaking.
Yeah.
So yeah, people, I'm not sure how many people actually know that was kind of where he started, was as I can't even remember Meathead. I can't remember his actual name now on All in the Family, but he's great. Like the conflict and just, all of that. He's a great kind of battling it out with Archie every week. So for this week, for our final podcast of 2025, we wanted to talk about actually film that came out in 2025, that came out very recently, in fact.
It did.
And I think this is an appropriate film to end on, and for a lot of different ways. So this is Wake Up Dead Man, the final third, the third film of the Knives Out.
Not the final.
Not the final. Not, well, I'm kind of like, ooh, is there going to be another one? There better be. Everybody loves these movies.
They have not said no.
So it's the third film in the Knives Out series, following Glass Onion. And I do want to say, before we start, one, we are going to spoil everything. We're going to talk about like the murder, how the crime gets solved, all that stuff. I will also say, if you have not seen the earlier Knives Out films, you don't have to have seen them to watch this one. Like, you can watch these independently. You kind of, the films, sort of establish the character of who Blanc is, but each film is sort of its own standalone. There aren't references to previous films or anything like that.
No, when they reference other cases that he's worked on, they're not the previous cases we've seen.
Yeah, exactly. So these are very standalone. And they're similar, like a lot. This is actually true for a lot of Golden Age mysteries. If you read Agatha Christie, or less so Dorothy Sayers, but with like a lot of these other writers, you very often don't get tons of references back. They're episodic. They're not meant to be watched in any particular order or anything like that. So just to tell everybody that you can watch this without having seen Glass Onion, in other words.
Although you should watch those too.
Yes, although you should watch all of them because these are so much fucking fun. Like,
Yes. They really
so
are.
yeah, Daniel Craig is back. This time he is like investigating the murder of Monsignor Jefferson Wicks, a priest in a small upstate New York town. Not quite certain where that is. I'm going to say Catskills. That's my guess. Who gets murdered in an apparently impossible way in a closed and observed room. And of course, everybody in his very small and increasingly nasty congregation is a suspect, including Judd Duplessis.
Duplessis.
Judd Duplessis, played by Josh O'Connor, who is a young priest who's kind of been facing off against Wicks and does not agree with a lot of Wicks's rhetoric and kind of Christo-fascism, basically. And so he's sort of the Watson character. Every single one of the Knives Out films has a Watson character that is in some way involved in the crime and a possible suspect in the crime, but is also kind of the assistant and the sort of almost the moral center in a lot of ways of the story. So what are your overall feelings about this film, Karen? What did you think? Did you like it?
Yeah, of course I did. I want to actually just kind of stop and talk just very briefly about the franchise as a whole. One of the things that I love about what Rian Johnson does with these movies is that he is inspired by writers like Agatha Christie, but he's not making an Agatha Christie movie. He's very much doing something different. And so this isn't like adapting Murder on the Orient Express. It's using some of those stories to inspire the story that he's trying to tell. And I love that about him as a filmmaker, him as a screenwriter, and what we get in this franchise. And I think that's why these Benoit Blanc mysteries are so much fun, is because they are new and because there's not reference material that just tells us, oh, well, this is who did it. You know, you can't read the book first and then know what you're getting into. And I like how each one of these kind of uses the tropes of the murder mysteries, especially of the like golden age of that genre. And so like the first one is there's a will, there's this old money family, there's, a big mansion house, all those things.
It's
the second one.
It's the country house murder.
Right. Yeah. The second one is a bunch of celebrities on an island. And now this one is the locked room mystery. And I really like the way that he does that. And I think you actually had said the next one should be set on a train. It better be set on a train.
You can't, this series cannot be over. He has not been on a train yet. How
Exactly.
He has not been on a train? I don't know. He's got to be on a train. That has to happen at some point.
It really does. Yeah.
Anyway,
so all of that to say, I mean, I love each of these movies and I love how different each of them feel from each other. And this one, Wake Up Dead Man, some of the environmental parts of it, I think, remind me of the first movie where it's kind of set out in the woods. It's kind of more of an isolated location. We don't actually interact with that many people. I mean, the second movie was like that too, but it just kind of feels more, I don't know, insulated because there's a lot, like you're not on this beautiful, pristine island. It's different. And so it reminds me of the first movie just in terms of aesthetic. And yet it's a very, very different type of story. And one of the things that I like is how, and Rian Johnson has given several interviews about this, where it's also kind of a personal story to him because it really deals with religion in a way that I don't often see used on screen. Usually when there are stories that involve religion, it's either everybody is a believer, maybe there's somebody who's doubting, but that's it, or it's kind of a fight between between beliefs. I believe this,
Mhm.
you're wrong for believing that. This doesn't do that. It just kind of grapples with the different levels of belief. And I feel like ultimately Benoit Blanc as a character, he's so interesting because he gets an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about what he actually does think about all of this religion. But he's also respectful of religious people. And that's one of the things that I just like about Benoit Blanc as a character is he comes into these situations and he'll judge people that deserve to be judged, but he's
Mhm.
also very kind to people, even if he's not on the same page with them. And I think he's such a fascinating character because he seems like someone who would just, that gentleman quality that he brings. He kind of seems like someone who just would be very judgmental, and he's not.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think he's a great character. I love this movie. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I like, so just going off of some of what you were saying about that he isn't judgmental, and he's also not a, he's not a pushover. He doesn't like let, like, him and Judd pretty much from their first meeting have this kind of back and forth where they respect each other. They're coming at it from very different perspectives. And you've got Judd, who's a priest, and he's got a very strong reason for being a priest, right? And one of the things that Blanc is very good at is identifying good people, and that's part of
Yeah.
it. And he does it in all three of the films so far. He gets the goodness in people, and it doesn't really matter if he agrees with them 100%, or if they're on the same page philosophically. He's like, you are a good person, right? This is someone who, even if they believe something I don't believe, even if they have a different perspective, they are good people, and they believe the things that they do for a good reason. He recognizes that Judd is a good priest. And by the same token, we recognize that Wix is a bad priest, all right? That he is someone who wants power and wants control and wants to dominate people and wants, has a massive ego and wants adulation, that he is not representing what, the kind of humanist Christianity that Judd represents, and that's dangerous. And one of the things that I like in this film is that you get Wix, who is a Catholic priest, um, and is like espousing this very Christo-fascist rhetoric. But a lot of that rhetoric is, and the behavior, that like all of the techniques that he employs, everything, all of that is so recognizable in our politicians, and it's so recognizable in the way that fascism works, and it works no matter who is doing it. If you're using it as, if you're doing it from the perspective of a Christian leader, or as someone who's just using Christianity for their own ends, is using religion for their own ends, it doesn't matter. It's the same rhetoric, it's the same sort of hardness and meanness. And there's this thing that runs through the film about, why would you drive people away from the church, right? Because that's part of what Wix does, is he shoves people away. He attacks people. And at one point, Judd remarks on why he's doing this, because each time he does it, it's about the people who don't get up and leave, the people who stay there, the judgment that builds and builds. And he talks about this as like calcifying these people and hardening them into this little knot of true believers. And it's very, it's this kind of microcosm of, an analogous representation of this is how, leaders, people like Wix, fascist leaders, you create these movements and create this like anger and hatred and everything in the hearts of their followers. It isn't about convincing everybody. It's about convincing just those few people who are going to go out and make things harder and make things worse for everybody else, who are not willing to get up and walk away. And it's a really interesting and nuanced take on the way that fascism works, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we see some little hints into Wix's character early on. First of all, there is the fact that his title is Monsignor, which is not in like he's a priest, he's a father, but he is not Father Wicks, he is Monsignor Wicks, because that is an honorary title that would have been given by the Pope, as my understanding. And he's very insistent on that is what you call him, and this is something that really speaks to his lack of humility. And because if he was really a believer, if he really was trying to do God's work, he wouldn't care about a title. He would just be doing the work, And so there's that little bit. And then also the first time, so when Judd arrives in town, arrives at the parish, and they have their first conversation, and then Wicks says, "Oh, hear my confession." And so they sit down, and it gets lost because Wicks starts talking about, like, he starts confessing all his masturbation, and he's doing it for shock. And it's a really funny sequence watching him talk about it, and then watching poor Father Judd react to what he's saying. But he starts off that confession being 100% honest, because he talks about how he coveted a Lexus, and he wants power, and he craves the power that his grandfather had, and that he wants things of the world. He starts off being very honest, and then we get distracted because Johnson is very good with the sleight of hand. And so we kind of forget that when I was rewatching the movie, I caught that, and I was like, oh yeah, he was totally straight up honest about what he wants from the beginning. And so those are just little glimpses into what Wicks values, what he cares about, what's important to him. And then we watch him using what little power he does have, what hold he does have over these few parishioners, and driving away anybody who he knows won't be pulled in, and that he won't be able to control.
Yeah, and using that, and then he begins using and it's interesting the way that it develops, because you get this developing kind of relationship between what he's doing in social media, right? And Cy Draven, who is, a failed politician, sort of a failed person generally, who desperately wants power and really doesn't care how he gets it, right? He just wants it, right? But he doesn't have that hardened center, I guess, where Wicks does. And so it turns into this interesting relationship. So Wicks begins to get more and more famous because Cy has been recording and posting his sermons, and it gets heightened and heightened. And then at a certain point, we're told
AI generated images.
Yeah, exactly. So at a certain point, we're told that, Cy has basically been building him into, whether or not it was intentional on either of their parts to begin with, but Cy's basically been building him into this public figure, this sort of, he's the soldier of Christ kind of thing. And they have a conversation where even Wicks is kind of like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm so bored. And then Cy's like, use these people, right? Use them and then abandon them. And that's where like the other side comes, because he is able to catalyze exactly what Wicks wants, but doesn't really know how to achieve beyond the power that he currently has. But Cy does. He does know how to get it. And that's also ultimately is what signs Wicks's death warrant as well. That's what results in his death. Is because he reveals himself very clearly to that hardened little knot of people that he's created acolytes, he's created fanatics, and he's used all of their underlying fanaticism and sort of built it until they're totally dedicated to him. And then he says, I'm going to destroy all of you. And that kills him eventually.
Right. Yeah. So the relationship between Wix and Sai is so interesting. We find out eventually that Wix is Sai's biological father, that he had a one night stand, and which he's been judging his mother and calling her the harlot whore for decades, and preaching against his own mother's, actions because she had him out of wedlock. And yet he's done the same thing. And he fathered a child. And at some point, Sai found this out. And so the two of them are kind of building this relationship. And there's so much humor in these movies. I love it. But there's a scene where Sai is talking to Wix about this. Like, this is what we can build together. We can rule. And then it cuts back to Judd, who's listening to the story. And he goes, "You mean like Star Wars? We can rule as father and son." Like Star Wars? Yeah. And then what's so interesting, and I didn't catch it the first time because I was laughing at the Star Wars reference, Sai then says, "Yes, the rebels." And Judd's like, "Wait, no." And so it's like Sai's one of those people that gets the absolute wrong message from everything.
Yeah,
like, he totally misunderstood Star Wars.
We're just like the rebels. But I mean, yeah, like we've talked about this before. It's the misinterpretation of that guy, like that, and we've seen it a lot, honestly, in the contemporary conservative movement and the contemporary fascist movement, of just like, we're fighting against the mob, right? We're fighting against the powers that be. We're, the Trump's original thing of like, we're going to drain the swamp, all of those things, and it's like, you're the bad guys, like you're the villains, you're the evil empire. How do you not? But they don't see it. They see it as like they're, and I do think that it's interesting. I'm not entirely certain how to unpack it, that you've got Sai, who's a black man, and you've also got his, she raised him like his sister, who's not his sister, not his mother, not anybody really.
Yeah, everybody assumed that Kerry Washington's dad was Sai's biological father, and he makes her adopt him and raise him.
Yeah, like the entire fucked up nature of all of that, and the fact that Sai has no acknowledgement of this, no gratitude about it, no sense of like she did anything for him. She gave up pretty much her entire life to raise this kid.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to cast black actors in those roles. And particularly someone, like Sai, who is, talking about how he's basically trying to find a foothold in MAGA. Like, they never say it directly, but that's exactly what's going on.
Right.
And he winds up using his white father, who's also a priest, in order to sort of elevate it. And it's just a really interesting casting choice, I think. And it's also quite important in terms of the representation of women and the downtroddenness of women and the way that this kind of patriarchy treats women. Because you've got this like series of women, all of whom are exploited by these powerful men who don't even care. Like, that's part of it, is that it's just like, well, of course I'm going to exploit you. Of course I'm going to use you. You should thank me for it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things about Sai that I think is interesting and doesn't need to be spoken out loud, I think that it's just kind of there, is the fact that he is a black man who is trying to rise up in the ranks of the Republican Party. And he even has a scene where he's talking about like, oh, I had the race thing and the LGBT thing and the pronouns thing. And he's going through all the things, right? And that is one of, that's what we see about Republicans, is when they do have somebody who traditionally you wouldn't think is being a Republican, they like to latch onto those people and hold them up as, see, we appeal to across the spectrum. And so he thinks that because he is black, that he should have been a star in the Republican Party, and he doesn't understand why he wasn't. And I think that is also something that just says a lot to us about like, this is how much Cy sucks, that even the Republicans wouldn't laud him and prop him up as their golden boy.
Well, but that also, he never remarks on the fact that he's a black man, right? So we never get that moment of like, maybe one of the reasons why they didn't accept you, but they would accept someone like Wix, is solely because of the color of your skin. Like, and because there's that element too, it's never addressed. Like, he never addresses it, that it's never mentioned, but you're just like, but it's obvious. You know, it's like these people are racists.
Yeah, the closest he came is when he said, I had the race thing, and but other than that, yeah, they never talk about it directly.
Yeah, it's so it's really interesting. I do have to say, just as a side note, I think that Kerry Washington Vera is one of my favorite characters in this entire film, and I loved her even more the second time around, because this is a woman who's been lied to, she's been manipulated. She's very much portrayed as like, she did the thing that the good daughter is supposed to do, and she respected her father, so she raised this kid, no questions asked. She gave up her like the opportunities that she would have had. She gave all of that up. She got out of law school, and she raised this 10-year-old boy that her father just handed to her and said, you're gonna bring him up. And after all of that, and then she finds out that the entire time he was Wix's son, and Wix knew that he was his son. And only at the point where he feels where Cy can do something for him, does he acknowledge that. And then Cy but that whole thing, I love it, because she's just like, she's 100% done. She's just like, fuck all of you. Fuck you, especially fuck you. And then she just like stops giving a shit. She starts smoking. It's just like, why are you smoking? It's just like, I always smoked. Like, she's just so, it's that combination of angry, but like, she's just complete. She's like, I don't care. She doesn't even expect like this group of people, when she reveals all of this to them, she doesn't even really expect them to side with her. She's just like, I just wanted to see. I just wanted to hear the bullshit.
Yeah. She just needed to have it out there.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, that entire scene is great for just the way that those loyalties shift and the way that perception shifts and everything. But her characterization in particular, and it's a small role in a lot of ways, but her characterization in particular, I'm just like, yes, whatever this woman is up to, I love her. Like, just like, fuck this.
Yeah. Well, and I love when she speaks, and I love when she is silent, because she says so much in both places, like at the very end, when she has sold her house and she's just standing out in front as they're packing up the moving truck, and she's got her cigarette and she's not saying a word, and she just has this kind of triumphant look on her face, and you really feel that. And that's the strength of Kerry Washington as an actress.
Yeah, she also has one of my favorite lines in the whole film. The this is but a psalm in the Bible of my bitterness.
Oh yes, that's
you fucking
such a
child.
Like,
yes, like, it's just like, oh, I kind of would be like, buddy, you are in danger. Like, I would not sleep under the same roof with her, to be totally honest. Like, I don't think you should go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, so what else do we want to talk about?
I mean, we haven't even touched on, well, there's so many things. Like, we haven't even touched on Glenn Close yet, but before we talk about that, I wanted to if you don't mind, I wanted to jump down and let's talk about the first time that Judd and Blanc meet. We kind of did a little bit about what they talk about, but one of the things that I love about this movie and the way that it's filmed is the use of shadow and light. And I think it's fascinating, and you especially see it in the scenes in the church. And one thing that I need to do a little bit more research on myself and read some interviews with the cinematographer and with Johnson, but I'm curious how much of it was planned and how much of it was just kind of what was happening while they were filming and they just went with it. But there's a lot of the church having all the stained glass and everything, it's very naturally lit. And so when Judd and Blanc are talking in the very beginning, before Judd even knows who Blanc is and why he's there, they're having this really insightful conversation about religion. And as Judd is talking about why he believes there's light, the sun is shining through the windows, it's very bright, it's really, beautiful. And then Blanc starts talking about why he doesn't believe and all the things that he sees wrong with the Catholic Church, with Christianity. And the shadows come, the sun is hidden, and it just gets darker and darker as he's talking about all the sins of the church, basically. And then as soon as Judd kind of challenges the beauty of faith, the light comes back. And I find that it's just such an interesting thing, because it's he's not Johnson isn't directly commenting and saying one is right and one is wrong, but it's just a really interesting use of the light and shadow, and it just kind of helps us visually kind of feel what each person is feeling. And I think that's brilliant. And then we see that again at the end when they're all gathered in the church and we're finding out the solution to the puzzle. The light comes back when the truth is illuminated.
Well, and also when Blanc himself decides that it's not going to be about him anymore.
Yeah.
Part of it it's that, because that's also his road, it's, as he says, his road to Damascus moment.
Right.
Is that the light comes back, and it isn't, and one of the things I do like about it is that a lot of like religious themed films, that's, it's the light of God coming down and like giving you, but it's not treated as that. That's not what Johnson is doing. And it doesn't feel, it's not that like, beaming shaft of light that we're kind of used to, but it's more this kind of clarity. And Blanc, and that's the point at which Blanc says, he sits down and says, I can't solve this crime. And he's doing it, and we learn why he's doing it. It's not that he doesn't know who did it. He does. He knows everything, but it's not his to speak. It's not his confession to make. And it is this point of humility for Blanc as well, because part of the conflict that runs throughout the film is, and it happens at a couple of different points, is that conflict between his sort of pragmatism and empiricism and belief in justice, and what Judd does as a priest and what he feels his role is as a priest. And there is conflict between those two, and like where this agnostic detective is fitting into the entire tapestry of Judd's own concepts about religion and about his and about grace and about God's justice, as it were. And it's this point where Blanc is like, it's not about me anymore. It's not about Benoit Blanc solving this crime. He always solves the crime. He always does it. It's about giving the person, putting faith in a lot of ways, putting faith in the person who did commit the crime and their confession and their goodness as well, and the choices that they have to make in order to do that. And then he says, he sits down, he's like, I'm not going to do it, I'm not solving it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of this is because of the fact that Blanc is a private citizen, he's a private detective. He's not beholden to the rules that the police would be, or the district attorney. And so he has a very strong sense of justice, but it's a little bit different from what the law would require. And I like that we get to see that in him, and even in the first movie with with the Ana de Armas character. He knows that she's a good person. And so even when it looks like she might have accidentally killed somebody, he doesn't want her to go down for that, you know?
Yeah.
And we see this here where he understands that there are bigger things than somebody making a big public confession or him outing somebody, I guess. And kind of naming you are the killer, because he understands what has happened and why. And he also understands where Father Judd has been coming from the whole time, and that the person who is guilty, which we find out is Martha, the Glenn Close character, that she needs the opportunity to absolve herself, to come out with it, and he's respectful of that.
Yeah, and it's ultimately healing. You know, he says to Judd, like, be her priest, hear her confession, right? And Judd at the very end also sort of, you know, because she's asking for forgiveness, and then he finds this, and also for grace. And it's interesting because Grace is the daughter of Prentice Wicks, who is Wicks's grandfather. And
Grace was Wicks's mom.
Yeah, and she destroyed the church, and like you've got all of that sort of, she's the harlot whore and all that. But Martha wronged her as well. But so it's an interesting thing of like asking for forgiveness and for grace. Has two different layers. Like even the first time I saw it, I was like, initially I'd forgotten that the daughter's name was Grace, so I thought that it was like, oh, she has to ask for grace. It's like, no, she's also asking for forgiveness for Grace for what she did to Grace.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to layer. Yeah, it all, like, it gets so beautifully layered. I mean, the Martha character, you know, she's fantastic. Glenn Close is fantastic. So I think you said that you'd figured out pretty early that Martha was the killer.
Yeah. I mean, I guessed that you don't put Glenn Close in a movie like this if she's not the murdered or the murderer, I think. But I was still going into it thinking, well, maybe that's a Rian Johnson like red herring thing, you know. But watching it like from the beginning, as soon as you find out that there's this money, and there's a line about how Martha's the one that keeps the books, I'm like, okay, she knows what happened to the money and she's trying to protect it, and so she's probably the murderer. I didn't know why exactly, and I definitely didn't know how. That was brilliant. But yeah, I was just like, oh, she's definitely got to be the killer.
It was interesting because in watching this, I was less interested actually who was the killer. I was like, how did how they do it, right? And there were things that I could put together, but other things just like but I don't know how that would fit. And then you get the added thing with the resurrection, right?
Yeah.
The Lazarus door on the tomb, and like it's like, okay, who's I'm just like, okay, people are dressed up as other people, but is Wicks actually alive? Is there some kind of like,
was this whole thing a fake like death? Yeah.
And that was one of the things I thought of immediately. I was just like, is this actually like some sort of fakery? Like, and then it turned out it wasn't. I was like, okay, so what happened? Right?
Well, I love Mila Kunis as the sheriff, who's like, he was super dead, right? Like, we confirmed that. We had an autopsy. Like, this guy was dead.
Yeah, the whole time I was like, how would they have even done that? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know, all of that. Yeah. So I think and that's what I think is really good about this, is that there's a lot of it is less about who did it and more about how the hell was it done. Right. So you can be like, oh, I think it was Martha. I think it's because it's not just Martha. That's the other thing. It's also
Dr. Nat.
Dr. Nat. Yes. Nat Sharp. Who we will talk about briefly. But so the whole structure of it is, it's also designed to distract you, which is part of the point as well, the resurrection element.
Oh, that was the other thing too, that tipped me off that it was her, was when they when they all gather, like when the murder has just happened and they all gather looking in and she distracts them. I was like, oh, that's a distraction. She's distracting them for some reason. So, yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, and the other one was the
the stabbing, right? Because it's like, yeah, of
Mhm.
course. So it would be the first person who goes in there and like has a few seconds to actually stab, but then it'd be, but I don't think that it's Judd, and that would be Judd.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very cleverly set up, and in fact, at one point, Blanc even says this was set up to look like a locked room mystery that isn't actually a locked room mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
And it
clever.
turns out they've been reading this, they have a book group. They have a reading group, and they've been reading these locked room mystery novels.
Yes, and I do have to recommend to people the book The Hollow Man, which this references heavily. There is actually that treatise in the middle of the book that is like the detective lists all of the different ways that you can commit a locked room killing. And it's also called I think it's called The Three Coffins in the United States. That's what it's published under as well. So it's an interesting book as well.
It is available on the Internet Archive. I couldn't find it in my library, but one of the things that I love about Rian Johnson is that he doesn't do well. I mean, he does a little bit of trickery in this when Father Judd is out in the woods and it's like lightning and rain and stuff, but that's very intentional. What I love about Johnson is that he shows you what's actually happening, you just don't notice it. So like watching it the second time, knowing how Father Judd or how Father Monsignor Wicks was killed, I was watching it, and Martha's the one that's dressing him. And then when he goes, you see from behind, when he goes from the pulpit into that room, you can actually see that head on like sewn onto his robe. It's there from the beginning. He didn't pull a punch on that one. It's right there.
Well, and he does that also in Glass Onion, where you've got that when Miles hands Dave
Bautista character,
yeah, when he hands him the wrong glass. And I remember watching it being like, he handed him the wrong glass. He handed him the wrong glass. And then they show the clip again. And it's like, oh no, he picked up. I was like, no, he handed him the wrong glass. I know that I saw that. And then I was right. It was like, yeah, that's right, because I've read a lot of these. I know what to look for. But yeah, no, exactly. It's very well. It's the same thing with the if you notice in the bar scene where there's like, find the difference in this picture, right? If you notice, and the difference that Blanc notices is the missing devil head on the second lamp,
right?
And it is, if you watch it again, it's missing.
Yeah.
Like, there's again, no trickery. It is absolutely missing, but you don't notice it because it's difficult to see, and also your attention is called to the doctor's bag. Yeah. Which also turns out to be important, but is not important in the same way.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting too, watching Martha and Dr. Nat, how like once we know what happened and why, it's interesting. Like, I love how rewatchable these movies are too. I was gonna say
and
that. Dr. Nat and Martha very directly attack Father Judd. She calls him a false priest. Dr. Nat's like, you're a priest killer. And they both perfectly know that he's innocent and they're the ones that did it. But just the way that they attack him, it's like, oh, you're not sure, Dr. Nat is definitely a murderer, right?
Yeah, let's talk briefly about Dr. Nat, because like, well, it's interesting because this is one of those where it's revealed that everybody does have a motive to kill Wicks, but it takes a long time for that to get revealed. And actually, interestingly, Martha is one of the few who doesn't get attacked by him, and she doesn't have as obvious a motive as many of the others. But Dr. Nat is like, the entire film, like, there's something wrong with this man. And I think you pointed out last night, actually, when you were rewatching it, that he's a serial killer.
He's gotta be.
And I agree with you that, like, when I first saw the film, I was like, and they're going down, like, Blanc and Judd are going down into the basement, and I was just like, are they gonna find like the body of his wife and kids? Like, has he like been murdering people left? Like, I really thought that he killed his wife.
I did too.
And he didn't. It's not shown that he did or anything like that. But you do kind of gonna go like, wait a minute, why does he have this conveniently human-sized tub of like, I don't even know what that stuff is. It's like quicklime or something like that.
It's
But
body melting chemicals.
Yeah.
If you've seen Breaking Bad, you've seen this happen, and it's chemicals that you can buy.
Yeah, it's just, and it's like, wait, but why does he have that? Why does he?
Mhm.
And he's like got a very convenient drainage system all hooked up, and like all of that. Just like, okay, he's a so he's a doctor, so he is able to obtain a lot of these things, right, without much question. But why would a doctor have that in his basement? Just have it,
Right.
like,
and I
why?
love how nobody questions it. It's so weird that nobody ever brings it up as like, this is super messed up. The only reference to it until we actually see it is when Martha makes a comment about like that gunk in his basement. And and there's no sign that he has like a hobby of taxidermy or something with like bones or anything like that, so there's nothing to give us any reason why he would have this vat of chemicals in his basement ready to melt bodies.
Exactly. And I do have to say, like, it's represented. So we see his wife once, right? His wife and kids like once. And then we're told that she has left him and she's taken the kids. And
it's in New Mexico.
Yeah. So she went most of the way across the country with the kids. And, normally when people separate or they get divorced or anything, that's not just it. There's usually some kind of contact, right? There's usually like, it's usually not just a total, particularly if you have children. There's usually just not a total break, but this woman left and there is no indication that she ever spoke to him again.
Right.
And so again, you're kind of like, something ain't right. Like,
yeah,
that woman ran, like she went very far away and she took her children with her.
I don't know why she didn't report him, but maybe because there's no evidence. I don't know. But yeah, so that's why the first time I saw it, I was sure that he must have killed his wife. Yeah. But then when I watched it again yesterday, the scene where he's talking to Martha in the basement and he's basically talking to her about everything, like he's gonna steal the jewelry or the jewel, and he's confessing everything to her, and he says something about like, I want to get my wife and kids back. And so if at that point he has no reason to continue to pretend that they're still alive if they're not. And so that's where I was like, okay, he didn't murder his wife and kids, but he's definitely a murderer. Like he's definitely like, killed other people. Yeah,
this man is a serial killer. I absolutely like. There's a bunch of unsolved crimes running throughout the Catskills, just like that can be traced back to this country doctor.
Yes, and I cannot wait to sit down with Rian Johnson and ask him, like, please just tell me.
Just like, he's a serial killer, right? Like he is.
But it's so weird that hasn't come up. Like I've read a bunch of interviews and I have not seen anybody ask him about this. And it's like, why is nobody wondering why Dr. Nat had these chemicals in this body-sized tub?
Well, and so this is the
that he died in.
There's going to be a police investigation after this. Just like, we're going to find out where he got these from.
Right.
Like how long has he had them? Like why does he have them in his basement also? Like that's his basement. It's not like in his medical office or anything like that.
Exactly.
Where it's a basement.
Yep.
The other thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly is because this is an interesting film. There are these little unanswered things, but that I think do hinge a little bit on this idea of perception versus reality, and what we perceive something as and what the reality of it is. And some of it is, to me, it has to be like deliberate, because you've got these characters. You've got someone named like Judd Duplantis.
Duplantis.
Duplantis. keep on mispronouncing it, Judd Duplantis, which is, as someone actually on Tumblr pointed out, just like is awfully close to being named Judas Duplicity. Like, but it's that like little shift, right? So if you look at his name, it's just like that's a weird name. It's a very visible name. It's a very like odd name. It's not like Smith or something like that, right? So you've got that, and we also see his name a couple of times because it's on his desk, right? And so again, and it's so on the nose as well, just like, well, he's duplicitous, right? But it also doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't mean that. And then the other one that you pointed out is like Lavel Appel, right?
Lavel Appel.
Yeah. Like, and that doesn't really mean anything either. It looks like evil. It looks like the evil apple, if you're reading it in English. It's supposed to kind of mean
Eve's apple,
which it doesn't. But it's again very visible and printed on the container where the jewel is supposed to be. And so we've got these little things where it's just like that's weird.
Yeah. Le Appel, it doesn't actually translate to anything, but the closest that so leve is an awakening. And so the closest thing, and appel is call. So the closest thing I would translate that to is a wake up call, even though that's not really a correct translation. But I feel like that is not just the way that it looks, but I feel like that phraseology is also important, because I think that's a lot of what's happening for the people in this movie. Like the parishioners too, they kind of have to have a wake-up call and realize that they've been lied to and betrayed. And Father Judd has this, and in some ways Blanc has it too.
Well, the other two names that like just clicked for me a little bit was Delacroix. So Martha's last name is Delacroix, which means of the cross. But she's also a woman who's in a church that notably does not have a cross, and there's a reason for there not being a cross,
right?
Because it was destroyed by grace. And then also the name, the Il Diavolo, the name of the bar, right? That has all these devil themes, and that the bar owner basically confesses that he doesn't care about the devil. It's just a look, right? So so much of this is like this hinging, I think, a little bit on what something looks like versus what something actually is, what it seems to mean versus what it doesn't mean. And we see like then the ending is that Martha and Samson and Sharp have engineered this rising again of Wicks, who at this point they know to be an unrighteous man, but are sort of keeping this concept of him alive in order to heal something, right? That's what they're going for. And again, so it's the and they talk about the Lazarus story. So it's the raising of an unrighteous man. And like all of those little elements that just get sprinkled in there, and there are probably more, honestly. You could probably go through and like get even more. I think that even I believe that the another interesting one, the cop that Mila Kunis plays, I believe is Jewish. She uses a couple of Jewish phrases several times. And so there's again this other like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, and so I don't even know what else to talk about. So part of what sets this whole thing off is that Father Judd has this prayer meeting, and he invites Martha and Vera and Cy and Dr. Nett and I don't know. There's we haven't even talked about Kaylee Spaney or
Simone.
Simone, and then the writer, what's his name?
Lee Cross.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so he has this prayer meeting with them, and anyway, he ends up in a conversation with Martha, and he's just like, could you confess your darkest secret to to Monsignor Wicks, and she's like, of course I could. Well, then she decides to go and do that. Her darkest secret is that she knows what happened to the family fortune, and she knows where it is, and what happened to Prentice Wicks, and why the harlot whore, his mother, went, supposedly crazy like she did. And so she goes and she does confession with Monsignor Wicks and tells him. We don't know that that's what she's telling him at first, because he comes out of the confession booth looking like I mean, he's obviously heard something shocking, but something he was not prepared for. What we later find out is that now he knows that he can get access to that jewel and have his family fortune and retire and live his wildest dreams. And so then he decides to plan to open the crypt and get the jewel. And that is when Martha and Samson and Dr. Net enact their plan of, no, we can't let that happen. Well, she can't let that happen. And so then they murder him. But I love how Father Judd coming into this parish and kind of challenging the things that Wicks has been doing all along is inadvertently what sets all of this in motion, and ends up being what frees the people here from the shadow that they've been living under.
And it eventually, and I like the ending. I like that it revivifies the church. It makes the church an accepting place. You even see the way that he's redecorated it, the dove of peace, like all of those things of really making this like, this is what, and he has this continuous, right from the very beginning, he's like, because he ends up being sent to Chimney Rock because he punched a deacon. And it's never revealed what the deacon said or did, but I kind of want to know. But they're like, yeah, he was a dick anyways. Like, we all kind of supported that. But the whole thing is that he's talking about, that he was an ex-boxer, that he killed a man, all of this stuff. But he's talking about Christianity as being welcoming. That's what the church has to be. It has to be open arms, not closed fists. And that's what the fight is throughout the entire film, is between the open arms versus the closed fist. And I love the fact that, not everybody gets punished, right? But there are open arms at the end. And that's what's really, really important at the end of all that. It's very positive in a lot of ways, and very hopeful. So any final thoughts on Wake Up Dead Man?
It's just so good.
There's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk. Like, honestly, we could probably unpick this film for another hour if we spent time on it.
It's true.
So yes, highly recommended. If anyone is, if you've listened to this, you've probably seen it because we have spoiled it. But also, if you've seen it, watch it again. I absolutely, Karen, you said earlier that these are great films to rewatch, because it's absolutely true. Once like, I spent so much of this film going like, I'm trying to figure out how this all worked, right? How is this all fitting together? Once you've done that and kind of had that first experience, going back to rewatch them are so rewarding, because you see new clues, you see like new themes, everything. I actually pretty much I didn't intend it initially, but I actually I've rewatched all of the Knives Out films in the past couple of weeks, actually. And all of them, I've seen Knives Out and Glass Onion a number of times now. All of them are so enjoyable. They're funny. They're thrilling. They're like, in some ways, they're almost more fun once you do know the solution, because you get to engage with other parts of the film. It's really just rewarding. I think these films are just a lot of fun to experience, and they do have depth. And they're one of the things with mysteries is that if you're able to watch a mystery multiple times and still enjoy it, that really says something. Because it's like, okay, it's over, we know who did it, whatever. But like, no, this is so much fun. There's so much there are other things going on that are fun to unpack.
Yeah, a really good film should be unspoilable, which
Yeah.
means that, I mean, yeah, it's fun to go in not knowing what's going to happen. And it sucks when a movie, when, especially like if you went into this and someone had accidentally revealed to you who the murderer is, like that sucks. You want to have the experience of discovering it for yourself. But a really good film, it doesn't matter if you know the spoilers, you can still enjoy it for the movie that it is. And that's what we have with the Knives Out series.
Yes, absolutely. So definitely watch it. I really hope. Yes, we have to have more of these films because he at least has to get on a train.
Exactly. Yep.
All
and he has
right.
not said no. He's contracted with Netflix for 3 films, but and now he's done it, but he has not said no. He basically said when he has another story, he will do it. So
Well, we need it. Need it. Come on, train. You can do trains in the United States, you can do trains in Europe, just train.
I think he needs to just go for it and do the Orient Express. Like, why not? Like, let's just do it.
It's the Orient Express. Well, yeah, it does still run. Actually,
Yeah,
it's just
it
like
totally does.
Yeah,
and it's super fancy, and yeah,
exactly. All right. Well, that is going to close us out for this episode and for this year. We will be off next week for the holidays, but then we're going to come back and we are going to talk about the films of Rob Reiner, starting with When Harry Met Sally, which is a great New Year's Eve film as well.
It is.
So really looking forward to that. That would be a lot of fun. Even though it's very sad that why we have come to this. We should have just been able to do a Rob Reiner's month regardless.
Yeah.
But thank you all so much for listening to us and for continuing to listen to us. And of course, we want to especially thank our patrons, who include Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriata, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Roxy, Steve, and Sharon. Thank you so much for supporting us and for listening to us. We are going to be coming out with a new bonus series for you guys to enjoy. So look for that. Really new year, definitely. And yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to join their number, our Patreon is patreon.com/citizendame. And of course, you can kick us a few dollars on our Ko-Fi. That's ko-fi.com/citizendame. And there are many different ways of getting in touch with us. We have our website, citizendamepod.com. We also can be emailed at citizendamepod@gmail.com. And we are on the various socials. We are on Instagram and Blue Sky at Citizen Dame Pod and Letterboxd at Citizen Dame. And of course, you can get in touch with us individually. Karen, where are you?
I am on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson.
And I am on Instagram and Letterboxd at LH Business. And thank you so much. Have a great holiday and a great new year. We will talk to you later.
Bye.
You're the only one on stage with the Monsignor at the time of his killing. You're the only one at that church who hated his guts.
The spirit really moved him today, huh?
So tell me, what the hell happened?
Everyone thinks I did it. I didn't do it.
This goes way beyond normal police work. This is something even I have not experienced. A perfectly impossible crime.
This case is solvable, right?
I'm incapable of not solving a crime. Oh, you'll see. It's fun.
Wicks had a vast family fortune.
If made public, can ruin people.
God forbid.
It is time to discover what this flock of wicked wolves is hiding.
There's some Scooby-Doo shit going on here.
Scooby-Doo. With all the pieces on the table, this crime appears impossible.
Makes me sick. These kids painting rocket ships all over his sacred resting place.